Hi, and welcome to today's episode of Live Healthy Now. I have a guest with me today to talk about something that I find so interesting, and I'm sure you're going to too, because it's something that is a huge part of our lives and can therefore have a huge impact on our well-being. So I have Kerry Jones with me today, who is an executive and transition coach. She works with senior professionals, with leaders in businesses, in corporates, to help them in their careers, and that's the topic today, career and your well-being. So welcome, Kerry.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. So the first question I always ask our guests to get us started and into the health and well-being zone is to find out a bit about your most impactful healthy habit.
Oh my goodness. My most impactful healthy habit is to get up early and to go down the beach. So I'm very lucky. I live in Brighton, about 5-minute drive from the beach. And I was down there this morning, 5:30, with my cup of coffee, my journal, found a spot of sunshine. And I sit and I spend time on my own in the morning before the kids get up. And I try and connect with myself before the business of the day. And that is something I've done for a number of years. Not always, I don't always manage it in the winter, but that is a habit that I try and stick to.
That is an amazing habit. I love that. And I actually used to live not far from Brighton myself for a few years. I lived in Crawley, so I know Brighton very well. I've been back a lot of times over the years. It's a lovely place. But I must say your beaches aren't quite as nice as what my beaches are here. We have a lot of really nice sandy beaches here.
I have missed
it. You've got the cobble beaches, we've got the sandy beaches here. So
yeah. There's a lot of it, but it's there's not much sand unless the tide really goes quite far out.
Yeah, and do you do the sea dipping at all? Because that's really gained popularity. No.
Kind of. I would dunk myself in. We're more paddleboarders in our family. But I would say I'm very seasonal. I'm not really good with cold water. Not really good with cold water.
Me neither. I've tried the sea dipping here. I have friends who do it. It's really gained huge popularity. A lot of people are doing it. I know not just in the sea, but in lakes and even in the ice baths that they've bought for their back gardens and so on. But yeah, it sounds like that's a really good habit. And I find as well, because I'm only 20 minutes drive from the coast here, it's just so therapeutic to be at the beach, isn't it? To see the sea, to be out walking. I love that as well.
Yeah. And do you know what? Most of my main decisions that I've made from a career perspective have been made at the beach. So if I ever need to make a big decision, I will normally say to my husband that I'm off to the beach for a bit. And because it just clears my mind, it gives me a whole different fresh perspective.
Oh, fantastic. And we are very fortunate to be living so close to the coastline, because it's something that I do think can have a huge positive impact on your well-being when you're outside and seeing the sea. So the topic of work is a really important one, and I think it's something that for a lot of people, because of how busy our lives are, and when you are working probably full time, it just becomes a part of your life. You're just stuck in that spin cycle, as I refer to it as, going to work, weekends at home, doing all of the stuff that you have to do in, your house and with your family. And so you often miss the importance and impact that work is having on your well-being and your happiness. So, I know with yourself, you work with lots of different people across different types of roles, with mainly women, with men as well. But what are some of the biggest challenges that you see with people, in their careers that are maybe affecting their overall feeling of success and happiness?
Well, most of my clients come to me because they know that something isn't quite right. And generally that's a sense of unhappiness or a sense of unease about their current situation. So having worked in corporate myself for a long time, I know that, as you say, it's very easy to just rock up every day, get stuck in the treadmill of doing things. And then there comes a point for many of my clients when they're like, I'm not really sure that I want to be doing this anymore. And they know that because they feel a sense of unhappiness. They feel a sense of, sometimes a sense of resentment, a sense of, why am I doing what I'm doing? What is the point of what I'm doing? And I think that then shows up in the way that they are interacting with colleagues, the way that they're interacting with their family, the way that they are spending their time outside of work. So you're absolutely right. So people tend to know there's something that isn't quite right here. And very quickly that spills into your personal life. And sometimes for some clients, that can be a sense of anxiety, or there's a sense of overwhelm. They're very common things that I see with the clients that I have. But yeah, this sense of unease of, I'm not really sure that this is right for me anymore.
And do you feel that people only get to that point when something's happened, like something big has happened? Is there a commonality between what wakes them up, if you like, to start to have those kinds of thoughts?
Do you know what I think? If I think about the clients I've had recently, some of them have had some sort of pivotal moment. So gone for promotion, didn't get it, or a new manager's come in that they haven't managed to gel with, or a new management team's come in and the direction of the business isn't quite where they think it might be. Others have been sort of made redundant and are thinking about, well, what impact is that having on me? What do I want to do next? So yes, sometimes I would say about half of my clients have had a trigger moment, as it were. Something external has happened that has made them question what's going on with their career. I would say the other half is almost just a sense of, like I said before, a sense of unease of like, well, I've been doing this quite a long time. I'm not really that motivated about it anymore. If I'm honest with myself, I really don't enjoy getting up every day. There has to be more to life than this. And I think that for those clients, that's happened over a long period of time. And it might be a series of years. And I think, lockdown and COVID and everything, the more people working from home, experiencing a different way of work-life balance, that I think people are realizing, well, there is potentially a different way that I could live my life happier and still be successful in my career.
Yeah, and that was one of the questions I wanted to explore with you, actually, was the changes that have happened because of COVID. Because I know certainly for me, when I first went to full home working, like a lot of people when we went into lockdown, I had this big wake-up call to how I was feeling in the role that work was playing in it. Now, I knew that work was stressful. I knew that I was struggling. I had quite severe anxiety and low confidence and low self-worth, and it was playing out in lots of different ways. So I was very aware of it. But I don't think I'd quite realised the extent of feeling like that and how it was impacting my overall well-being and health and happiness until I didn't have to get up and physically go into the office every day. Now, work was still very busy. In fact, we became busier than ever. And I wondered how I would ever go back to the normal way of doing things, with lots of travel and so on, and chatter in the office with people when you were just at home working full time in front of a screen all day. But I think for lots of people, COVID kind of gave that pause button, even if you maybe didn't pause in the work you were doing. It paused normal life, didn't it? And so, we talked about your return to normal and the positive changes that had come about for lots of industries and organisations because of what happened to changes in how they worked through COVID. But now it feels like we're just very much back to the original normal. We talked about the new normal. It feels like, and I'm hearing certainly in some of the conversations I'm having with businesses and people, is that things have started to shift back to how it was pre-COVID, and that's not a good place. It's starting to impact people again. So what have you seen through the pandemic changes? Is there anything positive or significant that's come out of it?
Do you know what? I think that the biggest positive thing that's come out of it is that people have realised that they've got choice. So when you get a taster of something different and you realise that it doesn't, that break, like you say, away from the norm, and you step into a new norm, the COVID norm, people, even though things have gone back to normal, and for many people, there is an understanding, there is an awareness that we have choice around our careers. And sometimes I certainly felt that when I was in corporate for a long time, you kind of forget that you do have choice around your career, either to stay, to move, to find something different, to change your working patterns. And because we get so sucked into the 8 till 6, the 8 to 7, the commute, it can be very difficult to lift our eyes up and see the bigger picture. And I think that for many people has been one of the positive things that has come out of the last couple of years. People have realized, well, there is a different way that I could do this, because I see my peers and my friends and my family around me now living slightly differently. So is that now available to me? And that's often a conversation that I have with clients of, well, how can I still be successful in my career, but have a different way of living my life so that my career is not the dominant thing in it, that my friends, my family, the other things have an equal, if not more heavier role to play. So definitely that's one of the positive things. I suppose the danger is that we forget that we have choice, and we do just go back to the 9 to 5, almost with a sense of resignation, like, well, this is just how it is. It's not how it has to be, and I think that I certainly want to be one of the voices that say, well, you do have choice to live differently, and that might come with consequences, and that might come with sacrifices, and and obviously there's always repercussions of choice, but you still have choice.
But that was definitely the biggest thing for me, was it opened my eyes to how things could be different. I didn't know what that looked like, and that in itself was very scary, because I knew that I felt so much better by not putting myself into those really stressful situations that I was always in when I was working face to face. And so I knew that I wanted it to be different post-COVID. I didn't know what that looked like. And then that choice was taken away because I was made redundant. And so then, because I'd already had those thoughts and feelings and a spark lit, it became, an opportunity, really. The redundancy, that was then the choice, I was given to be able to do something with it. And I think, what I'm seeing when it comes to health as well is how many people changed their habits through the lockdown, how many people were walking a lot more during lockdown. They were becoming, active and really enjoying that freedom. And now I'm hearing people say, oh, I don't have time anymore. I used to walk all of the time during the lockdowns. I kept it going, but now I'm just back to normal. It's like people have got caught up again in that, work-life cycle. And something you mentioned there, Kerry, as well, was about, how people think the career is them, they're so wrapped up, and they don't have anything else, or think it's possible to have anything else outside of that. And that's something that I've experienced, and I know for a lot of people it's a challenge, because you form your identity through the job you do, don't you? And you can lose yourself to that, which I know is a big part of what you focus on.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that this comes back to about being authentic in your job. So I had a very successful career in London and Canary Wharf for 16 years. I'm working myself up to a fairly senior level, and I think that it was a wake-up call for me, and it is for many of our clients, where we've realised that the work that we're doing, even though we're really good at it, isn't necessarily aligned to who we are, to what makes us want to get out of bed in the morning, what brings us joy, what feels like a good use of my time and my energy, what feels make a difference. And I think that if there are people who are in that sort of situation where they're thinking, well, I'm not, I want my life to be authentic, I want it to mean something, then it is really important to go back to the basics. Like, well, what does light you up? What do you feel excited about? Is your job aligned to your values? If it's not, then you're going to find it really hard to thrive there. And so some of that basic work that we might have done years ago you know, when we started out in our careers, it's really useful to revisit that. I don't know whether you did that, Nicola, when you were made redundant. Did you go through a season of really looking at, well, what actually, if I could do anything, would I like to do with with the next 5, 10, however many years? Did you do a similar exercise yourself?
I did, absolutely, because
Yeah.
I talk about not having a plan B. I didn't know what else I wanted to do. I wasn't someone who had this ambition to one
Yeah.
day do something different. So absolutely, it was a very difficult process because I felt as though I didn't know who I was. You know, I was
Mm,
45 when I was made redundant. I'd worked at Nike for 20 years, and I'd always had this fear of what would happen if I lost my job, because
yeah.
how do I find something comparable to the brand, to the job, to the salary?
Hmm.
So for me, it was hard to begin with, but then once I did start exploring it and found that passion of actually, who am I, what am I
Mm,
about? Because
yeah.
all I knew was that I was an account executive. I went to work, I did that job, got paid, and I believed that that's just who I was. And yeah,
Yeah.
I find that just so fascinating, how your identity becomes your role, your position.
It does. And, you know, for me, it was more that when I left corporate to have kids, and then I was, you know, a full-time stay-at-home mum for 4 years, my identity completely got shattered around, you know, who I was, from being a senior corporate, you know, woman leading a massive team to suddenly, you know, can't even get my kids to put their shoes on. It's, you know, it's a very different world. And I, you know, my identity shifted so much that I was very similar to you, very much lost in, who am I? Like, if I'm not a big corporate lady anymore, then, and I'm not just a stay-at-home mum anymore, who am I? And you do, and I think that what I'm noticing from some of my clients is that people can stay in that who am I really phase for a really long time. I mean, I stayed in it for years before I started working with a coach, because you almost don't kind of know how to get yourself out of it. You don't know how to figure out what your identity is unless someone kind of helps you along that way. You know, I mean, I'm sure that you do this with your clients as well. It's like, well, unless someone kind of provides a bit of a framework to help you to figure out who you are, it's not like you suddenly wake up in the morning and go, today I've now decided that my identity is this. It is very much a journey, isn't it? That you figure it out as you go, but you have to put in the work. You have to ask yourself those uncomfortable questions about the kind of life that you want to live, and is your current life aligned to the kind of life that you're building. Some of that is quite messy and some of it's quite uncomfortable, and a lot of people, you know, initially don't want to do that work because they're almost a little bit scared of what the answers are. But unless we do ask ourselves those questions, we're not going to know. So, you know, it's a bit chicken and egg.
And I think we haven't been brought up to think in that way either, have we?
Mm,
You know, the topic we're talking about, work being such a huge part of your life, and therefore how it can impact your health, your well-being, your happiness, is something that's just not pieced together early on. You know, at
no.
school you're pushed into, what career do you want? Fill in a form. Well, in my day, you know, take this survey, and then it comes back, and I got a midwife. That was what I was told I should be. You know, and you get then pigeonholed into a certain
Yeah.
job or career. But at that age, you're so young and you don't know. And then for many people, that's exactly the path they go on. You know, they go to
Yeah.
college or to university afterwards, or start a job, and then they wake up 20 years later and go, well,
Mm,
what's okay, I don't feel good, but what else am I supposed to do? This is just life, isn't it? You know, we haven't been
yeah.
taught that actually there is, you know, a different way, and that's to first of all know who
Yeah.
you are and what matters to you and what you want
Yeah.
from your life, to then go, well, actually, this would then be the kind of job I would like to work in. And something
Yeah.
that amazed me when I left Nike was how many of the other people who were made redundant at the same time have gone in to do something so different, and how many of
Mm,
those people who were very senior leaders have chosen to do something that maybe isn't as or seen to be as senior, as
yeah.
high paid, you know, as valuable a type career maybe on the you know, the front
Hmm.
cover, but yet it's something that is absolutely a part of who they are and lights them up, but they didn't
Yeah.
know that, or they didn't feel that it was right to walk away from a corporate job and do that. So
Yeah.
it's really fascinated me, that piece of it.
Oh my goodness. So like that is very much me. So, and there's two things I would say about this that I have found to be true for me, is that when you are in a role that is going quite well and you are, performing and you're thriving, and from the outside in, it looks like you've got like the perfect career, you've got the salary, you've got the position, whatever it might be. It can be very hard to give yourself permission to make a change that is more aligned with who you are. And it is very much because, and the reason for that is because for me, I felt like I always had to be really grateful for what I had. That if I wanted something different to this very successful career that I had, I'm therefore sort of saying that I'm ungrateful for it. And I had to learn that I can be really grateful for what I have, but still not want it. It was okay to not want that, even though many people would absolutely love the career and the job that I had. And I'm sure the same for you. That doesn't mean that we have to do it if it's not making us happy. And I found that to be true as well when I left corporate and set up my own marketing business, and I ran that for 5 years. And again, although that was successful from an external perspective, it didn't make me happy. And I had to learn the lesson again. It's okay to then choose to do something else, even if it doesn't, even if it's going well. It's okay to walk away for something, to find something that is more aligned to you. And obviously coaching is now the thing that I have found and absolutely love doing. So the point there for me has been to give myself permission to make choices that are going to make me happier. And obviously that will have a huge impact on my personal life and on my health and all sorts as well. And that's quite hard. And the other thing that I've learned is that it's okay to, and I say this to my clients, it's okay to pivot into new things more than once. So a lot of people, like you say, if I then jump from a corporate position, for example, either into another corporate position or to start my own business, what if it doesn't work? Well, okay, well, what if it doesn't work? What would you do then? It's okay for that to not be the end goal. It's okay for that to be part of your journey to see whether or not it's going to be what you hope it to be. And if it doesn't, okay, well, then what else would you do? How would you then pivot into something else? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that you career hop all over the place, but it's just giving yourself permission to go, do you know what? It's okay to go on a bit of an exploratory journey. It's my life. To see what might fill me up, to see what might make me happier. And I had to learn that lesson a few times. I'm so glad that I did in the end.
And what you said there was, it's my life. That is exactly the point, isn't it? And that's the thing that so many of us miss, not just with work, but overall. That's why I'm called Life Now, because it's about living, your life now. Because we forget it is our life, and we do get to be the ones that are in control and choose how that life plays out. So because of how many years most of us spend in work, obviously the retirement age is increasing further, and I'm sure for us it's probably going to go up again before we hit that age. We could be working until we're 68, 70. From some of us, I've got friends who went straight into work from college at 18. So you're working for the majority of your life and for the majority of the hours in every week of your life. So that's why it's so impactful to your overall life and your happiness, isn't it? And if something isn't right, I know financially most people have, commitments and pressure that mean it's not easy to necessarily go, I'm going to leave this job and I'm going to find something else. It's a transition process. But it's something that you have to do if you are really feeling unhappy, because it is that one life, isn't it? And you've got to...
Yeah, it is. And you know what? And often it's making a plan. So, the reasons that people, in my experience, the reasons that clients haven't... that they come to me is because A, they don't know what it is that they want to do, or B, they know what they want to do, but they haven't got the confidence or the self-belief to be able to do it. And I think especially those of us who have worked in corporate for a long time, that self-doubt, that lack of confidence can seep in. So without us even noticing, that imposter syndrome can seep in without us even realizing that it's there. And you start to tell yourself a narrative of, well, I couldn't possibly be this successful somewhere else. I couldn't possibly earn the same income that I'm earning now somewhere else. What if I move and then people find out that I'm not as good as I think I am? You know, these sort of things can keep us stuck in a role that is not aligned with us. And eventually that will impact on our health and our well-being, because the stress and the overwhelm and anxiety and happiness will kick in. So yeah, the confidence stuff, particularly in women, not exclusively, but particularly in women, is something that I see quite a lot, that we know we've only got one life, but we'll still stay stuck in this cycle of unhappiness unless we've got the confidence and the self-belief to step out and do something else. And you know what? I think that for me, part of being able to step into something else was having a plan. So, you know, once you've figured out what it is that you want to do, of course you can't just give up your very well paid job just like that. I mean, well, some people might do, but the vast majority of us still have mortgages to pay. And so a lot of what we do is around helping people understand, well, what steps can you take now? You know, where can you be in 3 months? You know, if you were to leave your job in 6 months, what could that look like? What would you have to do now to be able to transition to that? And I think that particularly those who are in corporate, where we've, you know, got a very structured way of thinking, because that has served us very well. We're all around structure and processes. Having a plan, a structured plan of how we can transition to A to B does mean that we can make that move a lot easier. I don't know, again, with you and the clients that you work with, you know, it's easy sometimes to figure out what the end goal is. It can be quite hard to figure out, well, how am I going to get there? And obviously that's what our role is, you know, as coaches, to help them on that journey.
Yeah, it seems so obvious, but so many people don't approach it in that way. You know, and I say this exactly the same way that you've explained it there. That's how I work, and it plays out where people come to me and they're like, oh, I'm overweight, I need to lose weight, or I'm not sleeping very well, I know that I need to sleep better because it's impacting my relationship and work and performance and whatever it might be. And they're coming to you saying, you know, I'm unhappy, I don't like doing this job anymore, but I don't know what to do. And so many people stay stuck in that place. Like, they know they want to change something, but they haven't seen and approached it as with the end goal and then the plan to go, okay, well, what can I do? It's just, I have to change. I have to not be this way. But they don't know how to move beyond that. And like you explained, self-worth, self-belief, self-esteem, self-confidence, all of those selves I talk about a lot. That's exactly what holds people back, because they tell themselves, I'm not a person who can change, or I'm not good enough to do that. I don't know how to do that. And you, in what you said there, basically repeated a conversation I've had with someone just this week who was talking about their career and literally saying the same things of, what if I move somewhere else and then actually I'm not good enough? What if I go to this other job and then they realise that I'm actually an imposter, that, you know, I can't perform in the way they think I'm capable of, and all of this. And I just actually did a bit of coaching with them and stripped it right back to go, forget the, because they're like, well, there's not even any jobs out there, and it's not this, and I don't know if I can do that. Forget it. What do you want for your future? What's that plan? You know, where is it you want to get to? More about the feeling of, well, what would that life look like and feel like? And then you just take the small steps from today towards it, don't you?
And all of that self stuff is fear. All of that what if stuff. What if it doesn't work? What if they don't like me? What if I can't do the job? What if it all falls apart? What if I jump and then I get maybe done? That is just all fear. They're all fear questions, and they're all completely normal. And I think that the thing we need to remember is that fear is there to keep us safe. That is what it's trying to do, you know. And sometimes I always say to my clients, it's worth having a conversation almost with that fear to say, I know, fear, that you're talking to me and telling me not to do this, even though I really want to, because you're trying to keep me safe. It's okay. I understand that you're trying to keep me safe. However, I really want what's over there. And I'm still going to be stepping towards it. And there's lots of techniques, and again, I'm sure you use loads of them with your clients, around understanding the impact of the words that we're saying to ourselves, the narrative that we're saying to ourselves, and realizing that a lot of what we're saying is just feeling. It's not fact, but it keeps us trapped unless we recognize that it is actually, that it's not real, that it's made belief. It's made up in our heads. There is no evidence to say that if someone was going to jump, that they're then going to get made redundant. So,
yeah, and everything that you're saying there is what people are saying to themselves regularly, you know, consistently, in probably a very derogatory way, which is impacting your well-being. You know, the mindset is a huge part of your health and wellness. So when you have that kind of thought pattern playing out, you know, every day you're going to work, or Monday to Friday most likely, and you've got those thoughts of, oh, I don't want to be here, I don't like this, I wish I could go somewhere else, I wish I could change career, but I'm not good enough, I would fail, I'd be found out. That on a repetitive cycle is very, very damaging. And that was my story. That was how it was. And I didn't realise, I knew that I wasn't strong mentally, if you like, and I knew I was struggling with some physical health problems, and I knew how I just felt overall, but I didn't put the dots together of, oh my God, because I'm constantly saying this, it's actually making the problem itself worse, and I'm not taking any action to change it. And I think this links to something I know we wanted to touch on, and you mentioned the word authentic a bit earlier, in that for lots of people, and I don't believe it's only in corporate, you know, I think it can be in any type of role, you aren't necessarily your authentic self. You know, you've taken a position on, I don't like to use the word actor, but I think it's a good, you know, analogy to give, in that you've been hired to perform in a role, and yes, it's not that you're making it up, you've got the skills, you're capable, you're able to deliver what it is they've hired and are paying you to do, but you are going in to perform in a role. And so for many people, we talked a lot about identity, how your job or career become your identity. That lack of being your authentic self because you're performing in a role also really then plays, you know, havoc, if you like, on your well-being and health, because you're not necessarily aligning to your values, which you touched on right at the start.
The authentic self stuff is really interesting, isn't it? It's like a bit of a strange word almost. I think for me, if I think back to my days, it's very easy when you have worked in the corporate environment for a long time to naturally put on your kind of corporate outfit, your head, whatever it is, and step into performing. And most of us have learned to do that really well, and it has served us really well. Okay, I think that, and I think in many ways there is nothing wrong with that. Okay, I think where it becomes an issue is when you recognize that the person that you are at work, the person you have to be at work in order to be successful, in order to do your job successfully and rightly, is not really who you are as an individual. Okay, and you know, I think you'll know that. And you'll know that because you start to feel a sense of unease. You start to feel that people don't really know you. You start to feel that you haven't really used your voice in the right way to speak up about the things that you feel passionate about. You start to notice that you're dealing with situations perhaps in a different tone of voice or in a different way. You know, you come away from meetings and you think, I'm not really sure that I'm actually okay with that, what's going on here, but I'm restricted because I have to do this particular role. And these sense of unease will start to build, you know, and you start to sometimes think, and they're real red flags for somebody to go, well, and you gently ask the client who was presenting like that, well, okay, do you feel that this role is actually aligned to the things that you believe in, to your values, to the things that set your heart alight, to the things that you feel passionate about? Is there a sense of alignment there, or actually how are you starting to realize that this sort of job that isn't the right fit for you? And sometimes that can be quite a scary realization if you're particularly invested in a business, because you suddenly think, yeah, I don't think I really fit here. I've got a client recently who's gone through exactly the same thing. She's literally just moved into a new role because of that. But she realised that I don't really feel like I'm aligned to where this business is going. And the reason that she knew that is because she didn't care about it anymore. And I think that that's so important for us as individuals to think, well, what if I could do something? What do I care about? What does feel right for me and a good use of my time? And I used to think that was kind of airy fairy thinking. It's like, oh, it's all good and well, but that job doesn't exist. Well, it does exist. We help clients find those sort of things every day. So of course those sort of things exist. But being able to have that honest conversation with yourself is the starting point. And that can be really, really difficult for somebody. I mean, I don't know about you, but I often have a client where you'd ask them a very simple question like, so what is, if you could have anything, if you could, wave a magic wand right now, what would you most like to do with your days? And and it's a very difficult question for many people to answer, because we are so conditioned to think that the corporate lifestyle is the only way, and as I say, it serves many people and many people thrive in that, and that is absolutely wonderful. But if you're not thriving in that, then it's worth asking yourself those questions.
Yeah, and they seem like such simple questions, but as you say, the ones that do really throw people, obviously as coaches we use the same kind of techniques and tools and so on, and it's surprising, and sometimes it makes me quite sad. And I was this person, I guess. I think I always was very deep, and I've always been interested in personal development and well-being because of my health journey. But even when I started to ask myself these deep questions, when I talked about the redundancy, it was difficult because I hadn't ever allowed it, because I was just of the belief that this is simply my life and that there isn't another way. And so, that I know from coaching a lot of people over my years at Nike, leading teams, having some conversations with people who were genuinely just really struggling, not because they didn't have the skills for the job they were in, but just because they didn't feel like they could be that person every day. And sometimes you'd see people move into a different function in the organisation and then just thrive, like just really change, and they'd come back. And one girl I remember actually buying me a present and going, oh my God, like this is the job for me. And I had no idea. I didn't think that there was another way, and I didn't realise how much it was affecting just everything in how I felt. And so, that's why you've got to think about this, in the way you live in.
And and I think that many people think, well, if it means making a major change, and sometimes it doesn't. That is a fantastic example. Sometimes it can just be a tweak. So I work with businesses with their employees, and it might be that employee just simply needs to move teams. They need to move on to a different project. They perhaps need to move with a certain, start working with a certain type of person, and then suddenly they blossom. Then suddenly they thrive. It's not always about completely changing, leaving the organisation or starting your own business. It can be what is a fairly minor tweak to help them then blossom.
Absolutely. So to wrap up, Kerry, what would be one tip that you would give someone to maybe take away and put into action to think about this piece of their well-being, is that career part of it?
There's lots of bits we didn't touch on today, but I would say that connected to that, the one bit I would say is have a think about what your next 6 months is looking like. And for many of us, we've got summer holidays coming up. Some of us might be juggling childcare issues. It's very busy. Have a think about the next 6 months and ask yourself the question, does what is in my next 6 months from a personal perspective and a career perspective make me feel excited? And if it doesn't, then you need to ask yourself, okay, well, what would I like to change so that I would be really excited or really looking forward to working each day? And I think that is a really good starting point, because then you can start to get a little bit visionary about your life, and then think, okay, well, if that is the thing I need to add in or take away in the next 6 months, what am I going to do about it? Do I need to have a conversation with somebody? Do I need to work with a coach? Do I need to go and have a chat with my boss about something? What action are you going to take? So that's not even one tip, is it? It's about 3 tips there. But it's about kind of always looking that little bit ahead. And if you're not excited about the things that are coming up, if you're not looking forward to them, then surely you're worth asking yourself those questions so that you can be.
Yeah, come back to the one life. Think about
The
that.
one
Yeah,
life.
what? Yeah, all about
And if
life.
you live near a
isn't
beach,
it?
go for a walk down each morning.
Yeah, definitely. Just it's pressing that pause button, isn't it? And taking
Yeah.
time to just think rather than be stuck in the do and know you should be thinking, but not being able to get to that place. So
Yeah.
if people want to connect with you, Kerry, do you want to let them know where they can find you and how they can maybe reach out if it's something they'd like to know more
Definitely.
about? Yeah.
No, definitely. So I live on LinkedIn is my main social media platform. So come and find me over there, Kerry Jones Coach. On my website, there's also a free resources tab at the top, which has got some really useful downloads on confidence tips for professionals, some workbooks on imposter syndrome if you struggle with that. So they're all up there that you can download for free.
Brilliant. Thank you. I'll pop all of the links into the show notes
Thank
as
you.
well. Yeah, so thanks, Kerry. It's been really interesting. I hope we've given people some good food for thought that they can go away and do a bit of reflection on and a bit of visioning as well. So thank you.
Pleasure.